My name's Dr. Daniel McEwen. I'm an artist, I'm a lecturer, I think I meant to say academic at QUT. My practice-led doctorate was about fan culture, and I've been getting around saying that I make art about screen culture, but I'm not really sure that actually means anything now. It's just a bunch of glowing rectangles bringing us things in only a few aspect ratios, really. And it all sounds a little monocultural. What I spend most of my time doing is teaching student visual artists and future creative professionals. I often teach them in a open studio model, a little like the CalArts model that started in the 70s. This is a kind of adisciplinarity that has no specific medium in mind when we start making art, but instead it's one about searching for the best suited physical foundation for the conceptual idea at play. Truthfully, though, I teach them often a little more specifically than that. Most increasingly, these are students born in this millennium. And so often we end up talking about and contending with what it is to be here in this moment. I used to think that in comparison, my experience as a cuspy kind of millennial made me different, but I'm not really sure of that anymore. I'm not really sure because my screen time is up 18% since last week. I got the internet. I got the internet in high school. That term made sense when I was in high school. And I was actually the second person in my grade to get it. The first person who got it in my grade, I became friends with because we both had the internet and we needed someone to message each other online. I used to think that might mean something about the perspective I had on this moment, but I'm not really sure about that anymore. I'm not really sure I have any more perspective on this than my students, because much like them, what I feel like I spend most of my time doing is fighting a losing battle against my own brain chemistry, trying to get off my phone, scrolling through the For You and the Explore pages, climbing out of rabbit hole after rabbit hole after rabbit hole, and trying to get back to doing something else, something productive that I forgot already. And in fact, I'd wager that because I didn't have to name those platforms that I was just talking about, maybe this is a familiar experience for many of us. I did check recently, I felt really good that my phone pickup stat was down 33% week on week. It was a sub 100 number, and I felt really good about that until I remembered I had an iPad, and that was probably picking up on a lot of that slack. And then when I really thought about it, I figured you don't have to pick your phone up as often if you never put it down to begin with. Sorry if I talk a little fast here. Sorry if this talk has no citations, if this performance doesn't really make sense. Please go with me or trust me or don't, that's fine. This is only on the internet and it won't last forever. This is being recorded, right? There are no slides. They were trying to export and it fell over. They don't have any fidelity, no careful arrangement. Obviously, it's just a bunch of things, one after the other, in some kind of really inappropriate nod to the hypertextuality of the internet, some kind of weird Ouroboros style nested Prezi, folded and collapsed, and instead we have this random assortment of slides. It's a little like this Hito Shayel lecture I saw last week, where she apologized for her talk being complicated because it was actually that she didn't really understand the topic yet, which I really liked. And then she said, actually, the value for you as listeners is to understand her in comprehension on a visceral level. So maybe this is some kind of performative confusion of being addled, internet addled. This talk is called Stop the Ride, I Don't Want to Get Off, My Digital Adolescence. If you read the abstract, I made some kind of analogy or metaphor. I'm never sure which one of those it is. And as soon as I Google, I forget what I was thinking about how the internet's turning us all into teenagers. But then I mixed up the metaphor pretty quickly. I also said the internet was like that friend you had who was a bad influence. Maybe we should stop hanging out with that friend. It's a messy metaphor, falls apart quite quickly. Maybe that's quite fitting. There might be something to it, given the fact that teenagehood was invented by capitalist ad men looking to make a new market demographic. There might be something meaningful there, but the time I put aside to consider it, I wasted Googling whether the Queen and Marilyn Monroe were really born in the same year. Actually, later in that blurb, I switched to talking about the internet as an ocean. By that, I mean culture. Pretty quickly lost track of the metaphor at that point, and kind of at this point too. That kind of sets the tone for the inattention that, well, that we've got here, but that's the only thing I've got now. Plus, you can drown in the internet. I mean, in the ocean. And that kind of seems apt, I think. The other idea I had was that the internet's like one big giant fanfic, but one we're all trying to madly keep up with. It's a fanfic so deep in lore and backstory, and we're always trying to keep away from spoilers as we catch up on the episodes. It's not that these aren't good metaphors, or at least they could be good, but really the title of the talk was a product of having to come up with it a while ago. And since then, well, a myriad of other things, a myriad of the names have happened here, in here. And that's maybe the ultimate point. One draft title I had for the talk was Chronically Online, or not me being chronically online, but I wasn't sure if we'd spent enough time on TikTok collectively for that to make sense. By the way, if you're not on TikTok, you're going to get left behind. That's how I'm feeling. That's why I'm worried. That's why I didn't quite get around to some of the things I need to do lately, because TikTok's just so good. I worry that if I don't catch up on TikTok, I'm not going to understand my students. Maybe you should start worrying about whether you're not going to understand your kids. Maybe collectively, we should worry that if we're not on TikTok, we might not be able to help them recover from what it's doing to them. It took me saying berries and cream in class the other day to get my students to pay attention to what I was doing. Like I was saying some kind of arcane spell, and they snapped to attention. Mind you, that was like 2 months ago, and now that reference is so passé that if I tried it again, I think they'd roll their eyes and pay even less attention than they were paying before. Another title I had for this was An Autodidact Dream. Anything you want to learn, always there. And I realized it should probably be An Autodidact Hell. Anything you want to learn, always there. Because that's actually the problem I keep having, this potentiality. I'm actually beginning to want someone to take away all the options for me, to curate my whole life, please. Suddenly the rise of the curator, or what feels like the rise of the curator, makes so much more sense. I think what I really wanted was a pithy title. I just want the promise of clarity that a pithy title brings. Plus, I was probably thinking about the SEO possibilities there. We're all doing that, right? Googling our titles before we decide on them. Another title I thought of was It's the Blank for me, but I didn't think that would translate into the spoken word so well. So when this moved, it made a lot more sense. And really, then I second guessed myself. Actually, maybe the internet's about everything but blankness. Maybe not. Maybe spending time on the internet feels blank, or it might leave me feeling blank. And then I started to wonder if that was too much of a TikTok reference as well. Same with doing these kinds of hand gestures that seem to creep in to my gesticulation now. That's the same reason I disbanded the idea that I would call the talk, oh no, my brain, it's broken, because there's this table meme reference going around on TikTok at the moment. I thought, oh no, my context is broken. Oh no, my worldview is broken. But then I remembered I've just spent a lot of time on TikTok, and not everyone has. One idea I had was maybe calling this the yassification of culture. Then I thought, actually, I'm not the right person. I'm not the best person. It doesn't make sense for me to expand on that idea. And then once this meme hit, it was over. I didn't think I had anything to add beyond this meme. Sometimes a meme is all you need, I think. Speaking of efficient communication, another title I had was on Instagram, because I thought that was kind of cute. And then I wrote the subtitle, The Seductive Pointlessness of the Infinite Scroll. That one used to scroll, but I abandoned that then because I started adding to the subtitle, The Deep Shallowness of Exploration, the explore page of my pocket. And really, it just kind of collapsed from there. I used to think Instagram was like a poker machine, which makes sense because the same companies hire the same user interface and user experience designers. But then I started to spend time on TikTok, and really there is no comparison. Another title I thought I could use was Open My Life in a New Tab, Open My Brain in a New Tab. I don't know about you, but I have 499 tabs open on my phone. I know I have 499 tabs open on my phone because Safari and iOS can only open 500 tabs. So now each time I need to open a new idea in my head, by that I mean a new tab on my phone, I have to decide on what I'm giving up for forever. Each tab is an idea. Each tab is some kind of outsourced moment of me being some kind of cyborg. Each tab is me thinking I will come back to something I'm never coming back to. I am not ready yet, though, I know, to pass up on the idea of coming back to the whole birds aren't real meme. I know that I'm not ready to give up on that because I found the tab twice, 200 tabs apart. Speaking of birds, actually, here's another metaphor. Maybe I'm like a hummingbird or a bee. I don't know. My heart rate is fast, that's for sure. Just something that flits around maniacally from flower to flower, kind of food source to food source. I even look sometimes quite purposeful when I'm doing it. Look at this now. But really, I'm just looking for the next little hit of nectar or pollen or whatever birds and bees are about. Really, my natural need to consume is being exploited by big plant. It's hijacking me, the poor little honey bee / hummingbird. All of my labor exploited, all for the plant's own market-led pollen propagation agenda. Some kind of monopolistic reach of big plant out, the only photosynthetic play in the venture capital market garden. Speaking of chemicals, I did mention in that blurb as well that the internet hijacks our brain, makes us slaves to serotonin and dopes to dopamine. Obviously, we could talk at length about what a massive percentage of the internet is just pornography, all that streamed scintillation and OnlyFans onanism. But I'll probably leave the hand-wringing over a generation of people raised on porn to psychologists who specialize in sexual development. What I do wonder, though, is what happens when all of these deeply touchable screens make us fully disembodied? What I'm haunted by is that other kind of pull to release feature, that seductive snap of a refreshed feed, that aching microseconds as your finger kind of lingers after that double tap moment and before that little love heart lights up and then fades away. That little visceral haptic feedback that comes from some place not quite specific enough in your hand, and then that little heart bounces and fades away. I'm interested in the sheer thrill, the unknown potential of the danger of swiping up on TikTok. Will it be thirst traps? Will it be a new dance move? Will it be science facts? Will it be science fictions? Will it be frog jokes? Will it be that one bit of a song that's a real vibe, or the other song that's a real bop? Will it be horrifying violence that's yet to be moderated out of the feed by some poor human in a click farm that gets paid minimum wage in a country where minimum wage is even more horrifying than I realize? Will it be me as the poor human unwittingly coming across it later on? Will it be inspiration? Will it be a self-harm tutorial? Is this all self-harm? Will it be a demonstration of plant grafting? That would be nice. Will it be a display of ostentatious wealth? Will it be a cooking demo? Will it be some kind of life hack tech tip, a mindfulness reminder to drink your fucking water and save this sound to your stream so you'll attract more good things to your life? Maybe duet and reshare this and like it for more of the same and more of this and more of this and more of this. Unless you want to work from home more for some more passive income, then hey, sweetie, I've got some great tips for you. If you just click below, you could drop ship your whole career in the ultimate kind of non-grind hashtag sustainable YOLOing. Will I be pretty? Will I be rich? Que sera, sera, ad nauseum, ad infinitum. TikTok is so good. TikTok is so good. I wrote that little bit, and then even just describing it made me so excited to go back to TikTok that I didn't come back to this talk until the next day. I keep having to explain to my students that their phones aren't listening to them, and sometimes to my colleagues as well. Some of them laugh and they joke about it and they talk into the bottom of their phones like they're taking a bite off the end of a cornetto. They act like they're world-weary, they know all the tricks, but they still adopt the posture of the surveilled. I know it seems like they're listening, I tell them. It's just really actually our inability to wrap our heads around what big data is and all the predictive algorithms at play. You're not getting targeted ads for Nike 79 tailwinds after you talked about them this morning, and Zuck was listening. No, you're getting them because this time last week I was Googling them, and the UDID numbers of our phones are actually just in the same place often enough that Zuck and Larry and Sergey, along with the raft of all the other existing demographic and consumer identifiers that Sheryl Sandberg has listed next to our profiles for the last decade, put everything together. By the way, I agonized over whether I needed to say Sheryl Sandberg's last name. That probably says something about the deeply patriarchal nature of the broness of big tech, but that's probably not a point that needs to be made. I probably don't need to talk about, and I'm probably not the person to talk about the fact that there's no real Beyonce of tech. But if there was, Sheryl would be it. She's the one who figured out how to exploit us so well when she was at Google that Zuck poached her for himself, just as he was starting to make his play for some democracy-killing domination. They don't need to listen to us. Our clicks tell us more about us than we'll ever understand. And in fact, that they'll even ever know what to do with, but they will capture it anyway. Our behavioral surplus, our digital exhaust. This is like the only emissions capture technology that's actually feasible. They predict the future to sell to the highest bidder per click. What good would it do Zuck and Sheryl and all the rest if we worried less about our mics and more about our accounts? This is a good rumor. With all this reality to contend with, I'm not actually surprised my students are never reassured by my blathering. I'm not really sure they ever believe me anyway. What's the difference if we click with more honesty and less second guessing than when we open our mouths? Just to swing back around to that titular metaphor, let's get specific. If the internet is a bad friend, it's a toxic one, like these guys, it's not just a fair weather friend, it's toxic, it's gaslighting us, it's gossiping behind our back for its own benefit, it's dobbing us for minor infractions and forgivable moral failures and basic human desires, and it's learned all its trick from its big bad capitalist parents. Extraction economics as a parenting model. Not just Daddy Zuck or the weird uncles Larry and Sergey, not just quietly judging Auntie Sheryl, who's always saving up the family gossip to leverage later, but the whole extended family of venture capitalist cousins impatiently waiting to quadruple their double-digit returns. So they go public then with double-digit growth projections for every quarter until the heat death of the universe. When I talk about this with my students, we've come around to the idea that they were experimented on. I grew up on Tumblr and all I got was this eating disorder. I grew up on Reddit and all I learned was how to self-harm. I know print media likes to talk about boomers in echo chambers, but have they ever seen a comment thread of teens on TikTok? I grew up on Club Penguin and all I got was groomed. I grew up on MSN and all I got was a topless chat with a fat man in his 50s. I grew up on Chat Roulette and all I got was a pantsless chat with a masked man of indeterminate age. I grew up on 4chan and all I learned was misogyny and racism and white supremacy and Holocaust denialism. I think we're supposed to feel better now that YouTube has fixed all that radicalization problem. Now they've changed the algorithm after all of that darned whistleblowing about all the dog whistling. But there's a whole lot of disaffected boys that aren't going to de-radicalize themselves now. In fact, now they're men on the internet. Fuck, that sounds pretty awful to me. They've graduated from YouTube now, from Jordan Peterson to just being pricks. What's going to bring them back from that? More internet? This is just the exploitation of minors in the hope that it'll turn a profit once it's scaled up. And it does. Radicalization is a good business model. What a surprise this isn't all going well. What a surprise there's a mental health crisis. I grew up on the internet and all I learned was that nothing matters. Speaking of my students, I think this might be meaningful. I'm always finding myself needing to remind them to Google stuff, as in not to check on like the veracity of their claims or critique their sources, but literally reminding them to use Google like at all. I think there's some kind of competing business model clashing there, because when I tell them things like, hey, you should look up this artist, you should look up this gallery, they look them up on Instagram first. I watch in real time the triumph of the image and the death of textual analysis, like a well-curated grid of tiny squares that sums up a body of work, a life in some cases. or reduced to a followed account among sometimes thousands of others. Should we worry about this? Should we worry about this, especially as it's brought to us by Meta? Meta, who's content to terms and service most of the world's nipples out of existence? Is this how language dies? Maybe it's how it cannily evolves. I'm not sure. Is that why TikTok is such a hotbed of creativity though? It could be. I don't know. I'm talking about TikTok a lot. I register, but I just can't stop. It's so good. It's so good. Every time I swipe up, there's something new. I'm thinking about it now. How long does this talk need to go for? There's a lot of TikTok I could look at. It's incredible. It's incredible, and it's incredible to watch a generation of kids on TikTok do these kind of incredible linguistic loophole exploitations, turning sex to sex, turning weed to weed, turning suicide to suicide. They do convince the text-to-speech to do curse words. It's some kind of canny kind of phoneticization that I can't quite wrap my head around. It's this entire generation of activists and artists and collaborators and carers who don't even realize that's what they are, but they are running rings around an algorithm that to spread the message. They tell everyone about the CCP's re-education of the Uyghurs. They tell everyone how to use a VPN, how to use a Tor browser, how to eat the rich, how K-pop stans can buy all the tickets to a Trump rally and make all the red hats see red. Maybe I shouldn't be reminding them to Google it all. That's kind of a catch-22. Maybe I should be encouraging them to spread algorithmic misinformation, the good kind, I mean, intentional hijinks, not ivermectin and hydrochloroquine. Speaking of COVID confusion, I have found myself explaining this to others, to parents, to colleagues, to boomers, that Zoomers don't use websites and software, they use apps, that they rely on someone and some place and something having a really good, often unpaid social media intern to post regularly enough in their own vernacular. I have this disturbing anecdote, I think that it's disturbing, about a student of mine and their inability to even use a desktop computer. Computers hate me, they say, and then not the only voice. They always reach for their phone as they say that. They can't use Photoshop, but they always do manage to use apps. One was using an app to edit a selfie, which I would kind of insist we call self-portraits because of, art history. And when they showed it to me, I asked, oh, what's that interesting red tint that you've added to the image there? What does that signify? And they explained that they wanted that red tint to be green. They'd only had red cellophane. They hadn't found the color tint function on the phone app they were using, so they just went analog. When I told this story to a colleague, I told it to them as I thought it was a great example of digital illiteracy and overdependence on the appification of everything. They took me down a peg. They reminded me, we could think of this as a great example of creative problem solving. I don't know. I mean, this is a group of students that sit up straighter in their chairs when I mention Netflix, like some kind of Pavlovian response, some kind of wet dream for Ted Sarandos. Maybe my lecture should have the Netflix sound at the start. Dun-dun. I kid, here's Bane. Please don't mistake this for some kind of Zoomer hate. I actually think the next generation, this generation that's already here, is actually really amazing. The ones I spend time with are really sensitive, they're open, and they usually have the right kind of suspicion about anyone older than them, including me. They were born in this time of whiplash kind of change. We merely adopted it. They're the Bane and we're the Batman without the back knee. I don't think that really works. But when it comes to this app centricity, I do wonder if it's actually some kind of quite savvy instinct of self-care. If everything you do is separated into discrete apps, maybe your brain isn't so addled by the internet's infinite array of possibility the way mine is. Maybe all this miasma of software's metaphors, like the burn and dodge tool that doesn't make sense if you've never been in a photographic darkroom, doesn't melt your brain. Maybe holding fast to apps means that you're more likely to know where you are and where you're going. I came here to Facetune. I came here to fuck. I came here to shitpost. I came here to submit my assignment. Maybe the home button, the bottom screen wipe up thing, maybe that helps you orient yourself. Zero the scales, clean slate your whole brain. Maybe apps help you know what you're doing, where you're going, who you are. Maybe actually it's the perfect treatment for what Douglas Rushkoff calls digiphrenia. But I wouldn't really know because I bought the ebook for that and I started reading it and I got spun off into a tangent of Googling something else and I never came back to it. That was about 2 years ago. My whole iPad is one big exercise in Sudoku, just like my Safari tabs actually, maybe my whole life. Maybe appification is mental compartmentalization, this underappreciated upside to a walled garden. You always know where you are in a walled garden, as opposed to where I am, which is lost somewhere in the internet without a Referdex. Mind you, finding someone under 25 who knows what Referdex is would be pretty tricky. And granted, even for anyone outside of Queensland, you'd have to say street directory, Gregory's instead. Maybe geographical context is one of the few contexts that haven't collapsed. Speaking of boomers, I'm sorry if it's a really reductive and triggering term. Well, I'm not sorry so much as I feel like I should say that I'm sorry. The generational chip on my shoulder is actually pretty big. Yes, compared to Zoomers and putting aside their crippling and chronic mental health challenges, it's not like us, right? I think boomers might demonstrate just how bad a friend the internet is to us, or how dangerous it is to swim in, depending on what metaphor this part of the talk is using. I don't know, it doesn't take long on Facebook to see examples. I know Twitter is the world's public square, for better or worse, the public toilet door maybe, but Facebook is really the world's drunken family reunion. Why did boomers get so keen to teach millennials stranger danger when they were just gonna post phishing scam answers to a random Facebook account? I don't know if Cambridge Analytica actually needed to obfuscate their deeds at all from a demographic who's madly posting the name of their street, the name of their teacher, the name of their pet, their first love, shouting out the PIN number for their card in the crowded pub. I'm not sure if it's appropriate to think of Zoomers as the ones who are self-absorbed. Who are boomers to tisk over nude snaps when they're posting photos of their grandkids on public accounts? Smooth-brained voters hand-wringing over the state of the world from the comfort of their Facebook feeds while the middle class erodes out from under them. It seems like the simulation might need some recalibration. Apparently all the executives at big tech companies actually don't let their kids use phones and iPads, huge if true. And as sensible and unrealistic as that sounds, I've actually often thought there was maybe another demographic who similarly lacked the critical faculties to be online and unsupervised. Speaking of which, apparently the recently resigned Twitter CEO, Jack Dorsey, ran all of Twitter from his phone and he only ate one meal a day. Maybe he still does. He's an intermittent faster and a hell of a beard wearer. I don't know if this means anything. You can draw any connections you want. I actually got really distracted when I started this little section of the talk by just looking up other billionaires' beards and then comparing them to Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber. So you can draw your own conclusions to that. Instead, maybe I'll make some kind of random shift to Mark Fisher. That's what us sit-het males usually want to do. I mean, I don't actually have much to add to this very eye-rollingly context to draw in here, except to reinforce this observation that many others have had and that he had too, that to say that there is a pandemic going on, it's one of mental anguish. And it can't be fixed, it can't be understood, it can't be healed or even seen if it's viewed as a private problem suffered by damaged individuals. Is it really an individual problem if every one of my students has crippling anxiety and self-sabotaging levels of procrastination? And is it really a failing of the individual? I mean, me, because I know all too well exactly what they're describing. I haven't finished my assessment yet because I've got too much to do. I didn't get this talk exported in time because I was on TikTok. I wanted to start, but I just scrolled through Insta instead and I Then moved on to TikTok, and well, TikTok got me good. But to return to the point I was making earlier, and one that I'm sure I'll go out on a limb and say that if anyone else out there is teaching undergrad academics, they would agree with me. If the internet is a bad friend, it's a toxic one for our mental health, especially if, as a Zoomer, maybe like all of us, you're still figuring out what mental health even is. If I want to, or if you let me mix the metaphors even further, well, maybe none of us can escape the toxicity entirely. I feel like maybe on a good day, I've got a little reserve, like a little, a modicum of a small amount of natural immunity, just by virtue of growing up without an iPad. Eventually, I do put my phone down long enough to finish this talk, or at least make it to the Zoom. Maybe though, especially for the Zoomers, it's got to be real bad, worse than me even. The internet, it's got them turned on so many infinite possibilities of consumption. They're often frozen to the spot entirely. Maybe this sounds familiar, this speed of hardly digesting what you've got, let alone getting ready to make anything new, like a Netflix queue that's so full of things that you know you want to watch that you don't watch anything at all. Paralyzed with potential. Consumptive potential, always consumptive potential. If you can watch anything and read anything and access anything all of the time, how do you carry that? How do you start any of it? How do you contend with the urgency of all of that now? Let alone how do you embrace creativity when an all-encompassing entrepreneurial influencer enterprise is right in your hand? Oh, wait. How do you start making anything new when there's like tens of thousands of maker accounts on YouTube just waiting to be watched? How do you start making something new when Disney Plus is just sitting there waiting for you to help regress into your childhood? My students are often so preoccupied with making something that they want to make sure has never been done before that they never start anything at all. That sounds familiar, actually. I'm not sure it's a symptom of that they're experiencing alone. I don't think it's a symptom of one thing. It might be a symptom of everything, this overwhelming everyness of right now. I read them a little text the other day. If you'll allow me, I'll read you a little too. It's from Bifo Berardi's book, Precarious Rhapsody. I have never seen so many heads nod in a class I've been teaching before. Sure, maybe they just don't ever think what I have to say is interesting, but there was this kind of urgency to the nodding that said, maybe there's something here. Old Bifo said, the acceleration of information exchange has produced and is producing an effect of a pathological type on the individual human mind, and even more on the collective mind. Individuals are not in a position to consciously process the immense and always growing massive information that enters their computers, their cell phones, their television screens. My students don't own TVs, their electronic diaries, thanks Bifo, that's a little out of date, and their heads. However, it does seem indispensable to follow and recognize and evaluate and process, or at least to see all this information if you want to be efficient, competitive, victorious, productive. This practice of multitasking, this opening of a window of this hypertextual attention, the passage from one context to another for some kind of, or under the pretense of some kind of complex evaluation of processes, it tends to deform the sequential modality that is our mental processing. This universe of transmitters, this cyberspace that it used to be called, now proceeds at a superhuman velocity and becomes untranslatable for a universe of receivers, us, that actually can't go faster than what's allowed by our physical material form, the stuff our brains are made from, the slowness of our body, the need for caresses and affection, and thus opens a pathological gap of mental illness that spreads, as testified by statistics and above all, I'm sure, all of our everyday experiences. This talk would have had more sources, but Google's just sitting right there, and every time I think, what about, or who, what if, I then get worried and investigate whether they're a predator or a TERF, or they might be soon. Actually, what scares me most is that If you can remember the kids at school, the ones who were the least social then are the ones who are in charge of being social now. Zuck doesn't think privacy matters because he's got a chip on his shoulder about not being cool. Now he's getting around killing animals and wearing too much sunscreen. What scares me now more than any of this is that if we thought this was accelerationist up until this point, all of this, wait until AI actually means AI and not some kind of gussied up machine learning. Wait until AR arrives in earnest. Should we talk about the metaverse or just Zuck's eyebrows? That's some cult of personality. Either they don't know that he's terrifying working in-house there, or he's so terrifying that they can't say. Either way, call me alarmist, but it's hard not to be scared of a company that intentionally exploits minors and foments coups and facilitates genocide, especially one that's aiming for a future where they're in charge of a whole verse, meta or otherwise. Plus, I don't think I have the self-control. I'm going to be in there. I'm going to try that shit out. Having said that, it's also hard to want Tim Apple to be in charge of that instead. Someone who's willing to side himself with this kind of malignant narcissist and maintain value for shareholders by doing so. That actually doesn't present that much more of a comforting choice about who you want to keep ads out of your eye line when you're out walking the dog. Anyway, I would have loved to have said more about this and a few other things too, but I got distracted on the internet. It could have been a lot better, this talk actually, but I've been trying to delete my Gmail emails because I keep getting emails telling me I've run out of space on my Gmail. The slides would have been better too, but I got an email about a 3-question IQ test and that sounded so good I had to try it straight away. And then after the first question, actually started Googling what the history of IQ tests was, and I really should finish that. Plus, I did say that this talk wouldn't have any answers anyway. But just to return back to this idea of the internet as a bad friend and one we should keep our distance from, I know it is, but I don't think I'm going to be able to. Maybe you feel the same. And just to finish here, coming back to that other idea of the internet as the ocean, the one that we swim in, whether we're knee deep, neck deep, learning to swim, whatever, I want to finish by reading this poem by Stevie Smith. Sorry, it's not cheery, but I'm scared of the internet. It's called Not Waving, but Drowning. Nobody heard him, the dead man, but still he lay moaning. I was much further out than you thought, and not waving, but drowning. Poor chap. He always loved larking, and now he's dead. It must have been too cold for him. His heart gave way, they said. No. It was too cold always. Still the dead one lay moaning. I was much too far out all my life, and not waving, but drowning. Thanks, everyone.